welcome back to another episode on the channel. And of course, we are still talking about football for today. Now, the Premier League season is in full force. Now, it's going to be match day 2 this weekend, and I feel like the season hasn't fully started yet. I also think that a lot of teams are not yet fully into it. The likes of Chelsea, the likes of even Arsenal, the likes of Manchester United, Newcastle. They are still, even Aston Villa, they are still trying to get themselves into the season fully. But as I said, it's just one game for everyone. So hopefully, probably by the time it's getting to match week 10, you'll see a lot of teams get into their groove and probably getting more results from some of the teams in the Premier League, especially the top teams in the Premier League. But yes, the Premier League is going to be having match day 2 this weekend, and of course some of the games are starting off on Friday again, and this time around is obviously going to be a London derby. Now, West Ham is obviously going to be hosting Chelsea. Now, the last time West Ham played, they lost to newcomers Sunderland. It was a disappointing result. And yes, I know a lot of pressure is still on Graham Potter to ensure that it gets results with that team, because they didn't do well so well last season, finishing I think 16 in the league. But then again, you look at this West Ham team when it comes to derbies like this, they just, for some weird reason, just always spring up. Like it's a different ball game. And so they are going to be facing a Chelsea side who I also think struggled a little bit in the first game against Crystal Palace. Now, don't forget that Crystal Palace have been having some very good games from last season into the FA Cup and obviously into the Community Shield. And so I think they just carried that over into playing the first game at Stamford Bridge against Chelsea. But this time around, Chelsea will obviously want to do better. I feel like exhaustion might also be another issue that probably some of the players are facing. Looking at the fact that they played the whole tournament in the FIFA Club World Cup, that in itself can also get them exhausted. So, but then again, they had about, I think, 3 weeks of rest before they came back into playing preseason games and then into the league season. But you know what, as I said, even aside from Chelsea, there are still some other teams that are still struggling to get into the rhythm of things. So let's see how that game goes. But I want to also believe it's still going to be, if for any reason Chelsea win that one, it's probably going to be maybe a slender win. Now, I predicted that they were obviously going to win the win against Crystal Palace, but then it ended in a draw, and I think it was a deserved draw because the first half wasn't so good for Chelsea, but the second was better. The second half was better for them. So let's see how they go into this one. But then again, I still expect Chelsea to win that game, probably 1-0 or 2-1 or something, but they should be able to get all 3 points in that one. And then the next game is obviously going to be Manchester City against Tottenham Hotspur. Now, don't forget that these two teams won their first matches last week. Man City won 4-0 and Tottenham won 3-0. Now, this is going to be quite interesting because I think in the last 3 fixtures between these two sides, Tottenham have somehow been able to get a hang on how to handle Man City. And it surprises me because I feel like Pep Guardiola always has a way to get over teams. But this time around, even when Tottenham were playing in their worst season, they were still able to give Man City a tough time. And so yes, Man City is playing at home, but then again, as I said, it's always a very funny fixture between these two teams. And then they both won their first games, so I don't know what to expect in this one, but I know it's going to be a high scoring match. Obviously, it might probably even end 2-2 in that one, and those are games starting off on Saturday. And then of course we have Brentford against Aston Villa. Aston Villa drew 0-0 against Newcastle in their last game, and Brentford this time around lost their game. So Brentford is playing at home. Yes, they are still struggling to keep Yohan Wissa, who is looking to leave and go to Newcastle United. Is still a battle as to the transfer getting over the line. But then again, I feel like if I'm to look at those two teams, I think Aston Villa is a bit more stable at the moment. So there's a possibility that Aston Villa might probably win that one. It might just be a very slim win, probably like a 2-1 win. Also, don't forget that some of their players have left the team, and so yes, they're still struggling a bit to move together, but I think they'll be fine. They'll be just fine. And they have a coach who I really think is experienced. Emery is a very experienced coach, and so yes, I want to believe they'll be able to get over the line in that game. And then it's going to be battle of the newcomers. Burnley is obviously going to be hosting Sunderland in this one. And I really didn't get to watch their match in the Championship. But for them to be able to qualify to the Premier League or be promoted to the Premier League, it's obvious that they are one of the best teams out there. And obviously, even with the fact that Sunderland won their first game, you know what? I wouldn't even be surprised. So I think it's going to be a very, very interesting game. It's going to be one I will definitely be looking out for, just to see how they handle each other and then going forward into the season. But also, that might probably be a very tight game, but it might also even be an high-scoring game, which will end 2-2 or 1-1 or something. But yes, that is what I think about that match in particular. And then to end for Saturday games, we have Arsenal against Leeds. Now, as I said in my last game, I said Leeds are a very annoying team, and it showed in that match against Everton that was played on Monday. Now, I don't even think I expected them to win that match, but somehow they were able to get a penalty, which I don't know if it's a penalty, to be honest, and that is an officiating error. But they were able to get that win. Now this time around, they're going to be facing an Arsenal side who they're also trying to gel together, you know, especially with the likes of the new signing Victor Gyökeres, who has joined the team. Hopefully he can get his first goal in that match. But even if it doesn't, Arsenal will obviously be looking at the fact that they are playing at home, they have the fans behind them, and they want to get the win. But they have to be very, very careful, because as I said, Leeds can be very annoying, and so if you're not careful, they would rather that they draw the match than for them to lose it. So you have to be very smart, and I'm talking of the coach now, Arteta. He has to be very smart, especially about his setup, ensuring that it puts the right players in the right position, because that's one thing that Arsenal fans have complained about over time, not playing the players in their right positions. And so it has to get it right, and not just that, even substitutions right, to be able to get some sort of point in this one. But I do see Arsenal winning this one, probably a 2-0 win. If they're able to get it right, yes, they should be able to get all 3 points in the game. And then heading over to Sunday, it is Crystal Palace against Nottingham Forest. Now, Nottingham Forest, for me, I still feel like they're still shaking from last season, even though now it seems like, oh yes, they're not preparing for European competition and all that stuff. But you know, looking at what they did last season, I think they've also started this season very well. And it's going to be a battle of two teams that are a bit consistent at the moment. Crystal Palace is obviously going to be playing at home, but it's still going to be a very close match. Like, I feel like if Crystal Palace is going to win it, maybe because they're playing at home, and it might probably be like a 2-1 or 1-0 win or something. But it's going to be very, very close. It's going to be very exciting in that one. And then on Sunday, we have Fulham against Manchester United. Now, Man U lost their last game against Arsenal in the first game last week, and so this time around they'll be playing a Fulham side who I feel like I don't even know what is going on with them yet, but it's going to be quite tricky to see how Amorim set up the team in this one. Now, yes, there are still talks about Alexander Garnacho going to Chelsea and all that, and some of the other players, and even Sancho, who I think they said refused to go to Roma because of the fee and all that. I don't know how Amorim is going to handle that situation, but definitely they have to you know what, get the point. That's what's important now. They have new players, especially the likes of Mbomo, Konya, and even Shesko, and they have to get the team running, because the truth is, if they now keep losing matches, the new players will get affected and they won't give their optimum performance. And so they have to start getting results, and hopefully that can transcend into finishing in the better side of the table by the end of the season. But yes, they are facing a Fulham side, and I want to expect them to win that one, even if they'll win maybe 2-0 or something. But I'm not so confident in that, to be honest. I'm not so confident. And then on Monday we have Newcastle against Liverpool. Now this for me is more like a rematch of what happened in the FA Cup last season. Now, of course, Liverpool lost to Newcastle in the final of the FA Cup. It was quite interesting, because I feel like Liverpool really didn't perform well in that final, and so yes, they didn't deserve to win. But this time around, Newcastle doesn't have Alexander Isak, who can score the goal for them, and yes, there's still a lot of questions about how the team is going to move forward from that. But Liverpool, I think, has everything going well for them at the moment. Their main striker, who is Ekitike, scoring and assisting in their last game. Mohamed Salah also scoring, and he actually even won the PFA Player of the Year award, I think yesterday or something like that. But I think he's on a momentum right now. So yes, Liverpool might probably want to get all 3 points down, but trust me, Newcastle is not going to make it easy for them. Now yes, they didn't win in their first match of the season. I think it was a draw in that one against Aston Villa, but this time around they are playing at home, and they will definitely give Liverpool a tough time. Now, as I said, the last time it ended in advantage of Newcastle winning the title, the FA Cup title. But this time around is the Premier League, so a lot of pressure is obviously going to be more on Liverpool to win the game and ensure they get the momentum, going, especially that they are defending champions. But you know what? Let's see how that goes. And then in La Liga, we have just one game on Friday, but most of the matches are obviously going to be on Saturday for La Liga. Now, Barcelona obviously is going to be playing their second game. They won the first one 3-0. It was a clear victory for them in that one. But this time around also they are playing away again against Levante. And Levante for me is, I think they're one of the tricky teams in La Liga. And so, but I want to believe there's going to be an easy walk for Barcelona in that one. And then also on Sunday, Real Madrid, I think they're supposed to be playing their match on Sunday. They'll be taking on what's their name now? Real Oviedo. Now that's one of the new teams that are coming into the league. And yes, I even if it's away from home, as I said, I want to believe that Alonso is going to get the better of. Maybe the more time they play, they're going to get their hand together. Yes, Mbappe scored a lot of goals last season, but that really hasn't into the results that they've had so far in the league. But you know what? They won their first game at home, beating Osasuna. You can tell it was a difficult one. I think they struggled a bit to get it going, but eventually they were able to get a 1-0 win. Mbappe scoring through penalties. Actually, they needed penalty to score in that game. But this time around, they are going to be playing against the newcomers, and I want to believe it's going to be an easy win for them in that one. And then, unfortunately, Atletico Madrid lost their first game against Elche. It was Espanyol. They got the first goal, and for some weird reason, they lost the game. But yeah, they are going to play their next game against Elche, which is one of I think the good teams also in La Liga. So I don't know what the result is going to be, but they're playing at home. They're playing at the Metropolitano, so it should be an easy 3 points for them in that game. Now, away from football, the US Open in tennis is obviously going to be starting off this weekend. Now, the mixed doubles started off yesterday Tuesday, and some of the results for me were quite interesting because I felt the likes, it was a mixed double anyways, and it was more of the organizers, the tournament organizers trying to get top seeds, into playing the mixed doubles. And so it was something they wanted them to do before the main US Open itself starts, and that they've done since yesterday. Now, it's not a lot of players in it, as I said, it's just the top seeds, the likes of Elena Rybakina, Carlos Alcaraz, which for me was quite interesting because I didn't think it was actually going to play in that game, given the fact that he had recently just played the final of Cincinnati. Yes, he didn't play the focus of the match because world number one Yannick Sinner was injured, he was ill, and so they couldn't really complete the whole set of the match. But then again, he won the title, I think it was just on Monday, and then he played in the US Open mixed doubles yesterday. Yes, they didn't win the game, and I'm not even surprised because I felt like he needed that rest. But obviously, the likes of Iga Swiatek, who also won the women's singles title at the Cincinnati Open, she actually won her first round and then also the quarterfinals, and now she's in the semi-final. But I feel like I honestly don't even understand the whole point of the tournament really, because the main tournament itself is going to start, and then they are going to have the men's double, the women's double, and the singles, obviously. So why they are trying to get the mixed doubles, I honestly don't know, but I think it's more like drawing attention to the tournament. I don't know if that affected them a bit last season, but I think is doing just that, getting people's attention to the tournament. And obviously it's the last Grand Slam of the year, so definitely they want to get all the viewership and everything that they want, just to make sure that they're getting the money. But that's the latest update in tennis, and that's the much I'll be talking about today. But don't forget to follow us on all our social media handles at _official FSH, and also keep sharing with your friends. Please, the more you share with your friends, the more the family grows, and more comments, it gets more people to come to the page. But yes, thank you so much for joining me on the program today. Definitely I'll be coming your way again. Just before I go, I think in the next video, before I'll be dropping this preview, I'll be doing a little bit talk about the transfer window and so far what is happening, and some of the transfers that I think has been quite interesting, especially the case of Alexander Isak. I'll be talking more on that video. But for now, don't forget to share, comment, and subscribe, please. Really do, I really do appreciate for everyone that has subscribed so far. Thank you, and God bless you. Until I come your way again, enjoy your weekend.